Emily told me to tell this story, and I couldn't
I
think
think
of
we
anything
had
else.
some shocking. We need a little gross.
Okay.
Okay, she told me to talk about mango flies.
Oh,
They said,
this disturbed me so much.
then I have a good mango fly story.
We
That
need
is
to
awful.
educate our audience about all the things both cool and gross of different countries. Welcome to Go Fish, a missions podcast. Today, you are probably wondering, where are John and Josh? Well, this is a ladies' takeover, a special ladies edition. We actually have several amazing women in leadership at Global Outreach, and I am blessed to work with Laura, who is the director of mobilization. Laura, tell us a little bit about what that is.
Hey, Emily. Yeah, but first I need to say that I get to work with Emily, who is the director of Missionary Kids, and she's super awesome. Yeah, and I love that it's Ladies Takeover, Ladies Edition. I mean, I think most things are more colorful when they're Ladies Edition, are they not?
Definitely.
Not that we're putting down Josh or John in any way. They do an incredible job, but hey,
Yes.
this is fun stuff. Yes, I love working with Global. You know, director of mobilization has been kind of a new endeavor for me. And it's just been a really neat space because it kind of itches my OCD admin, need. But then it also allows me to be, just visionary, like creative, entrepreneur. I never say that word right. However you say that.
You did great, Laura. You did great.
Something like that. But it has been really fun. And I do think it is a great space, to highlight and celebrate the fact that women in missions can lead and have led for hundreds of years. And just that there's such great stories of missionary women leading out. And it's really encouraging and collaborative. And it really makes me happy that, we at Global very much celebrate women in leadership and women on the mission field. So yeah, super awesome.
Thank you, Laura. Well, if you guys are follow along on social media or our website, you might notice that John and I have the same last name. He is my husband. So those of you who don't know, we are married and we've worked together for the last 13 years at Global Outreach, which is pretty awesome. Currently, my role is advocating and preparing kids to go to the mission field and then caring for them while they are there with their parents. Laura, we have something exciting coming up that happens at Global Outreach 3 times a year. And in October, we are looking forward to our next missionary orientation and training. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and who we have coming to join us?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this is a super exciting time, 3 times a year, because we get to come together with these missionaries at the home office and meet them. And the neat thing for me in this role and some of my other coworkers who I love so much is in mobilization is the fact that we have been walking with these candidates for sometimes years to bring them to this point of really them being ready to go through mission orientation training. And so then just getting to see them and meet them, especially when we have our first Sunday night get together at your house, which I love. Although, what's
Me
funny
too.
is I think one of my favorite ones was actually the one where it was like raining like crazy and the Super Bowl was on.
Yeah.
Because then it forced all of us to talk to each other. Like nobody could wander off on the beautiful ground space, which obviously it's really awesome to do the outside, MOT cookout. But I thought that was really fun. And it just provided that unique space to say, hey, we're launching something and we're coming together where most people are coming together for Super Bowl. We're coming together to get to know one another and begin that awesome week of training our missionaries to go to the field. And so, yeah, it's a super special time. We always are beating feet to get everybody to where they need to be in order to come. But I also know that, not only are we training and working with the adults, but they're also bringing lots of children. So we actually have, Emily's very much aware of this. We have 20 kids coming to the next MOT. And, yeah, tell us what you do, Emily, when you get a number like 20 with all varying ages. How do you even sort that through in your brain? Because Emily's like, can you tell us how many are coming? And we're like, yeah, here you go. Tell us how we can help, so it's kind of a wild time.
I think people might be intimidated by that number, and I just see it as an answer to prayer that missions is changing. We start our training off at our house on Sunday. Our slogan we say a lot is we're a great missions family, and we really want it to be sending the entire family and preparing the whole family. So I look at it as a blessing that we have these 20 kids, literally 6 months to 15 years old this time, and a unique opportunity to just really invest in their lives, teach them about who they are in Jesus, even in the midst of this huge transition and change. And so that's a little bit about what we do. I'm not the only one in charge of these children. Praise the Lord. He has equipped other people who have the gift to love on and encourage and just really invest in these kids spiritually for a week. So it looks a little bit like us. We get to have an awesome camp week, really, and just dive into God's word, fun activities and games, and help prepare them for this change that they're about to jump into. So speaking of missionary kids, Laura, we have this amazing interview with 3 young adult women who grew up as missionary kids on the field in Uganda. And I can't wait for our listeners to hear a little bit about the beautiful blessings that come with growing up as a third culture kid and the challenges that they have faced. And listeners, how you yourselves can get involved. So without further ado, let's hear the interview.
Friends, thank you for joining me here today in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. And I'm so excited. I would love for you to introduce yourself to our listeners. First off, I'll introduce myself because they might not know me. I'm Emily Darnell, Director of Missionary Kids at Global Outreach, based in Tupelo, Mississippi. Carolina, I just said your name, but I would like you to introduce yourself and tell me where you grew up.
Hi, I am Carolina Gortney, and I grew up in Uganda, just outside of Jinja.
Where are you currently living, and what are you doing?
Okay. I am back in Uganda working as a third culture kid advocate there on the ground, and also working alongside of Emily, but virtually as a third, missionary kid care.
My name is Peyton Osterman. I grew up in Jinja, Uganda, and I am currently in College Station, Texas, studying psychology.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Morgan Osterman. I grew up in Jinja, Uganda, and I'm currently in Texas.
Okay. Recent graduate.
Recent.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're very, very excited for you. Well, I would love for you guys to give a little bit more background about what it's like to grow up as a missionary kid, or we will often say third culture kid, or TCK. So those are all, we use them interchangeably right now. But what has been your greatest joy growing up as a missionary kid? And you guys can answer whoever's ready first.
Are you ready?
My favorite part was just being around people from all over the world and just different mindsets and different worldviews and getting to meet people.
I think my favorite part would be not having to grow up so quickly and being able to have a longer childhood.
Tell me more about that.
I feel like in America, you're rushed to be more mature and more grown up way quicker. And in Uganda, you're not forced to do that. You're able to have a longer childhood and just be yourself longer.
It's my turn. For me, I think similar to what Peyton said, but just getting to interact with so many different people, and even just in so many different age groups growing up. I had so many friends that were younger than me, and adults, and little kids, and people that I all considered friends that were just in different stages of life than me. which of course is also sometimes hard to not have so many friends like your same age, but it is also just really cool to get to learn from people in all different stages. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that multi-generational living. And Carolina, you touched a little bit on a challenge too. I would love for you guys to just explain to our listeners, what would you say is one of the greatest challenges as growing up as a third culture kid in a different country than your parents' home country? What is that like? And how can you share with our listeners today one of the biggest challenges?
I think one of the biggest challenges living there is not being around like family and grandparents and cousins. I look at like other people and I see them like seeing their cousins all the time, and it makes me feel like I would want to be around them more. And so I'm excited to be around them more now that I moved back. Oh, you want me to go next?
I can. For me, yeah, and it's funny because it's kind of a different side of what I just said was a good thing, but just not always having like the support that I needed, whether it was for school, whether it was just like emotionally, relationally, like just not having that support that I needed, and not people not understanding kind of like what I was going through, whether it's family back home or people like locals on the field, even other like missionaries in different stages of life without children, like didn't always understand just like the difficulty and even like the impact that they could have on me, either positively or negatively. So yeah.
I absolutely agree with both of them on what they said, being away from family and people not understanding you fully. I think another struggle was just schooling and finding a good school. I did 3 different schools before like finding a good one, because there's just not really a super great option. So I ended up doing online high school, but that was definitely a struggle.
Yeah. And you even led into that was something that fit for you, finding an online high school. What are some other ways, like in these challenges, what were things that people did that really helped in the challenge? Like, so Morgan, missing family. I mean, that's a huge one for missionaries, and the schooling option, and even just maybe not having the support system that you needed. Who was somebody or what was something that really did help in that challenge area to bring awareness for the people that are listening?
I think for the family thing, having people that felt like family, friends who are like family, we call them family. Trey and Rachel are some really good friends. They're like an aunt and uncle, and her boyfriend's family, the Segners. We go and stay like a weekend at their house, and that really helps having really close friends. Yeah.
Do you want to go next? Okay. Oh yes, I remembered. Okay.
Good job.
Sorry. Yeah, there for me, like specifically, I can think of one person, and honestly, I couldn't really even tell you this lady's name. I could tell you like which church she came with, but we had like a church team and that came and visited us, and they like were really intentional about like spending time with the missionaries and just like pouring into the missionaries instead of just like doing work while they were there. And one of the ladies on the team just really took a lot of time to be like very intentional with me, and like I remember one day like she didn't let me like help. I was always like serving and helping, and she was like, no, today like we're gonna serve you, and like you go sit down and have fun with your friends, and just took a lot of time to like listen to me and ask me like really intentional questions about my life, and not just like what it was like to live in Uganda or to be a missionary kid, but like really about myself and like who I was, and just made me feel really like seen and understood, and that had like such an impact on me. Yeah, to remember that.
I think with the school thing was teachers who moved all the way across the world specifically to teach missionary kids, because that was like a huge need there. And the first school that we both went to, and then the second school she went to, was just teachers from different parts of the world that just devoted their time to teaching missionary kids.
I love that you guys mentioned all those very different, unique ways, but I think also really practical. Like it wasn't anything that cost a ton of money. It was relational time spent. And that's one of the reasons we're together. You're probably wondering why are 3 girls from Uganda and a girl from Tupelo, Mississippi in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. But we're here as a missionary retreat, as a global outreach greater family or framily. Is that how I said it right? A greater family. And it's really cool because we just get to spend that relational time with people that we understand. So now this is a little bit more perhaps funny, perhaps just completely shocking. We call this the whale tales. So I want to hear from you something that is crazy, that might shock our listeners, and they're like, what? Like, this actually happened on the field in your country? And I'm going to start off because I actually have kind of a crazy story. I went to the mission field with a 6-month-old, and then I had my second daughter in Ecuador. And I went into labor, middle of the night. We went to the emergency room, and they're like, okay, yep, you're in labor, you're having the baby, we're going to admit you today. At the same time, there was actually a lot of screaming going on in the ER, and my Spanish wasn't wonderful at that point, but I could understand something crazy had happened. And I asked my husband, and he said there was a car accident and someone passed away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. So they get me checked in, I get in my bed, I get wheeled into the elevator, and then they wheel in another bed next to me that is a body covered with a sheet.
Oh my gosh.
I was going into labor and a cadaver was laying next to me in the elevator, and I looked at John and I said, is that a dead body? And he said, just don't look. Just don't look. And I mean, it was really sad, but I was also like really disturbed. I'm like, don't we have other elevators for this? But that's my whale tale. So, yes. Does anyone else want to share something a little wild? It could be funny. It could be just shocking. It could be totally gross. It could be amazing, like a cool experience.
You guys need 2 microphones?
So we're sisters.
Yeah.
Our family went on a safari to Murchison, and we were in this safari car. Normally, every time we went before that, we drove our own car, but this time we had a safari car. And it was this big Land Cruiser, and you're not supposed to drive off the path, but this was 2020.
If you give them a little bit of money, they'll take you anywhere you want.
I don't think we did that, but there was nobody. We were like the only people in the park. Okay. So our guide was like, we can go off the path. So we go off the path, and there's this huge tree, and we're right underneath. I'm on the roof rack with my little sister, and we drive up underneath this tree, and there's a leopard right above us.
I was inside the car.
Like right above us. And so my sister was just squeezing my legs so hard because she was so scared. The leopard ends up, the guide told my mom that the leopard was going to jump down, but we were too far away. We didn't hear that. So the leopard starts going down the tree right in front of us and then goes off into the bush. And so we're like freaking out, and we're like, this is so cool. I got some epic pictures. Then we go to drive away, and our car high centers, and we get stuck. And there is nobody else anywhere near us. There's a leopard on the ground near us, and the only wood anywhere around us that we could use to stick under the car was right next to where the leopard is.
So we all got out of the car, just standing in the bush, right where the leopard was, right there. Olivia is crying. She's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be in the car. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want to be in the car where it's safer? She's like, I want to be outside. I'm like, that doesn't make sense, but whatever. So she came out. We were standing on this like termite hill so we could see a little bit more. My dad and the guide walk right where the leopard was, pull down this dead tree,
my dad has a pocket knife, that's all.
Out of the ground, walk it over. put it under the car, and try and drive. Obviously, it didn't work.
My dad had asked the guide previously before they wandered off if the car had, I don't know much about
Diff lock.
cars. Yeah, if it had a diff lock on it so we could get out. And the guy was like, no.
No, it doesn't have it.
They bring the tree back, do all this thing, and then my dad finds the button to make it do that. And then as soon as we did that, the car went away, like drove.
My dad drove it out because he was like, he told the guy, he was like, just let me do it. So he pushes the button, diff lock, turns it off, drives down, and we all leave.
Oh my. So yeah, that's our crazy story.
They're so cool.
Am I telling a story now?
Yeah.
Okay. Emily told me to tell this story, and I couldn't
I
think
think
of
we
anything
had
else.
some shocking. We need a little gross.
Okay.
Okay, she told me to talk about mango flies.
Oh,
They said,
this disturbed me so much.
then I have a good mango fly story.
We
That
need
is
to
awful.
educate our audience about all the things, both cool and gross, of different countries.
Yes. So mango flies, they go in your clothes when they're hanging outside. When they stay out late into the night. So you have to bring your clothes in before the dew starts to settle in the evening. So they lay their eggs in there, and then when they get in the warmth of your body, when you put the clothes on, they bury themselves into your skin. And then you have to wait for them to become ready to pop them out. So this is not a normal mango fly story because they're all gross, but I had one again during COVID times.
Yeah.
Which only impacts the story a little bit, but so I thought it was a mango fly. The nurse looked at it, she agreed, she thought it was a mango fly. She tried to pop it out and nothing came out. So she was like, must just be like some sort of like infected hair, like ingrown hair or something. Like I was like, okay, whatever. So then later in the day or the next day, it was just stuff kept coming out of it. And I was like, that's so I go back to the nurse and I was like, are you sure? At GSF, our nurses are residential, so they're also my friends too, for context in the story. I was like, are you sure this is fine? And she was like, yeah, it's okay. I was like, all right. So I'm keeping it really covered up, there's a virus we don't know much about going around, and we're going out into Jinja, and I'm keeping it really well covered, and several days go on that stuff is still, and I'm like, this is not normal. So the doctor then looks at it and she says it looks like something's getting infected, so she puts me on an antibiotic, and that kind of brings some of the swelling down. But it's still, once I started the antibiotic, that's when I started, I was like, I'm sure this is a mango fly, because I could literally watch, blood and stuff was coming out. But I also could, see something moving out and then, back in. It was so gross. So I, go back. After I finish the antibiotics, I go back and I show them, and I'm like, look, this is what it's doing now. It was a different nurse around that day. And they were like, So they were like, it must be a mango fly. So they were like, let's try again. So they they bring in another nurse, and they're trying to dig it out of my skin, and you can see white areas, but they just couldn't get it out. They dug around in my arm, squeezed my arm for a long time, and nothing came out. And they were like, maybe it's scar tissue, we're not really sure. So of course by this point I have a big hole in my arm, so they wrap it up just really tightly. And then the next day, this is when things got a little bit affected, because people were coming and going. People that had been there the day before had to leave really fast before things locked down again in the country. So another doctor was there, and he unwrapped it and just squeezed my arm so tight, and that's when it was a mango fly, popped right out. So either we had kind of like hit it the day before with the needle, or like when she wrapped it so tight it like killed it in there. And anyways, like I said, usually they come out on the first time, but I still have a little scar from that one. So
Awful.
yep.
I think our listeners probably want to know, did you name him?
No.
No. Just kidding. I'm really glad it's a little scar and not a big scar, because it could have been a lot worse.
I had one on the top of my ear one time because I have a little pillow that I sleep with, like a comfort pillow, and it must have gotten in that, and I put my head on it. It was on the top of my ear, so it was fine. It didn't have anywhere to burrow.
Yeah.
And so they got it out, but it looked like an elf ear.
Oh, that's cute.
It was
I
so
bet that was
pointy.
really Christmas time special right there. Well, we have just a couple minutes remaining, and I would love for you guys to share just quickly, how can our listeners be praying, I would say specifically for missionary kids? Like, what would you say is the biggest prayer need? And it can be out of your own personal journey, but biggest prayer need for TCKs or MKs?
I think having a good community around you and finding a good church. That is so hard. We've been through like 4 churches while we've been there, and we just couldn't find one that was healthy for us. And we finally found one, and it was such a blessing. So finding good community and a good church.
I think just living in a different culture just adds a lot of extra stress to your life, just like living daily life, even when you're like normal. So that's adds a lot of like hardships to your life, and also just like the stress of just trying to be like the perfect missionary kid, or like putting that on you, or like other people doing that. So just yeah.
I think just like for like finding places of belonging, and like just like even just belief that you belong in a place. Like sometimes, like even Peyton said, like there's so many extra stresses, and sometimes you just can't see beyond like all the things that are so stressful, and all the cultural transitions and whatever, that if there's any little, especially because we're so used to people like coming and going, if there's any little like thing that seems off relationally, like it's just hard to believe that people are really around. I know I've left rooms before and been like, I think that was the time I said too much, and like may have lost a friend, and they didn't really say anything wrong. It was just like, oh, like I don't know that people will accept like all of me. And so I think just believing that there are places that you like belong, and even like in Christ and with other people as well. So
Well, I think a prayer request I have is, you guys are amazing young women. Like, you really are. And what a joy it is to see how God has worked in each of you and has grown you. And what a joy it has been to walk with you guys for different journeys, for different amounts of times. I look forward to many years to come. And I see so much potential for the Missionary Kid program at Global Outreach to grow, so that we can care for more kids around the world. So a prayer request selfishly is that we can grow our missionary kid care team. Currently, we have Carolina and I are the only full-time employees for missionary kid care at Global Outreach. And Carolina shares a lot of her time with just specifically Jinja, which is amazing. But listeners, if you're interested, email me, let me know. But we want to pray that God will minister to these kids who are amazing. So thank you, guys.
Listen, Emily, those young ladies are amazing. I mean,
They
truly, it just touches my heart to think about just the way that God is like raising up the next generation of missionaries. And that interview is just such an answer to prayer and such an encouragement. I mean, you talk about being real influencers. These young women are real influencers. I have to say, though, I was just so laughing because when you shared your whale's tail, I was thinking like, they will never want to have kids. Like they will be like, okay, so I think I'm good. I was like, that was a shocker. I loved it. And then of course, as a mom and having had children myself, birth story is like, feels at times rather traumatic, but I'm telling you, you win the birth story trauma right there. Not many people get a dead body coming out of the hospital as part of their, let me hang on to this memory while I'm birthing new life.
And the funny thing is, Laura, my kids every year on their birthday want to hear the story of when they were born. And so like we relive this, and it gets funnier and funnier. And I remember new things each year. So I don't know why that was the first story that came to my mind, but I just went with it. You know, one of the blessings, it was funny when we planned this podcast, I wasn't planning that these were going to be 3 women who all grew up in Jinja, Uganda, but the Lord just orchestrated it that way. And I have known Carolina for the last 8 years of working in the office side, the behind the scenes side, and to just see really her grow, mature, her passion deepen for the Lord and for caring for and advocating for TCKs. Like, she is an answer to my prayers. And I've been able to just see the blessing of her mature, and then just getting in to invite Morgan and Peyton. That was actually the first time I met Peyton in person. We had only communicated via email over the last couple years or so. And then I have had Morgan in my pre-field training. So I really felt blessed that I got to see this generational growth that the Lord has continued to work, not just in their lives, but in the Missionary Kid program at Global Outreach. This is only a program that's 8 years old. And I just see so much potential for growing programs and opportunities for these young people to just really engage with each other and with what the Lord is teaching. So for me, it felt really special to have that glimpse of that time and hear from them. And I just can't wait to see what the Lord is going to do with them in the future. So yeah, it was really pretty awesome.
It's so encouraging thinking about really truly the legacy that parents are leaving, you know, and churches when they really invest in the younger generations, because then they pass them on, you know, to programs, even that begin with MOT, like we're circling back around to that. I mean, when you take time to invest and teach the kids the way you do, in a way that they can understand, in a way that they can process and prepare them well for the field, and then the way that you continue with them, you know, that gives them the confidence they need to say, you know, I want to continue to walk in this path. I want to continue to serve the Lord this way and live out that Great Commission calling. And I think so many of our young people don't do it simply because they don't have the knowledge and the tools or the example of somebody that they love close to them, you know, encouraging them and cheering them on. And that is exactly what I feel like, you know, the MK program, you know, does at Global. I mean, it's your cheerleader. Like, you really are a cheerleader. Like, they know they can come back to you and that you will encourage them through the good and the not so good, the yay and the yuck. Do you want to say really quick what that is? Because honestly, that's like one of my favorite parts of MOT, by the way. I use that at home with my kids all the time.
It's such a great and a simple tool. I have some friends that work at Mission Training International, based in Colorado, actually outside of Colorado Springs and Palmer Lake. And they use a tool called a paradox to teach about the paradox in life. So 2 ducks swimming together. If you're kind of picturing this, we have one that's pretty shiny, picture those yellow rubber duckies, and then one that is covered in black Sharpie, looks really beat up. There's a yay duck and there's a yuck duck. And I think something that's really important to teach kids, and then even their parents, is that constantly in this life, we will experience paradox. We're not yet home. One day we will be home in heaven with our Father, and there will only be yay. And that's something really exciting to look forward to. But until then, there is constantly the yay and the yuck in life. But we have to let them both exist. And we have to allow kids and adults to process the yay and the yuck. And I think that's one of the hopes that I have, is that at least I want them to have a place, whether it's me or their parents or other MKs that they look up to, that they have someone, their church, that helps them process the yay and the yuck.
Yeah,
So
that's so good because it's just inevitable. I mean, it's
mhm.
inevitable that there will be both, and that people coming alongside. What I heard something just the other day, which we've all heard, is that, you know, if you want to run fast, run alone, but if you want to run long and far, you know, run together. And so I just love that, you know, you're running together, all those people coming together and reminding like the yay and the yuck. And this is part of life. And it's especially going to be part of ministry and missions and family.
Yes.
I mean, just family, you know, family.
Yeah. I mean,
there's going to be conflict resolution needs, you know, with every space that we're in, you know, and so being able to get, you know, it's not that I told a young woman one time, I was like, it's not that I'm able to prevent you from engaging in the battle. I'm really just trying to give you tools to fight.
Amen.
You know, because the battles are going to be there, especially on the mission field, because that's a place where the enemy doesn't want anyone.
Yes.
And so I love the spirit behind it, even with the good and the bad. Yeah. It's an effort to disciple and, you know, continue to disciple all of our missionaries, but especially intentionally the next generation. And it's just such a beautiful thing. I just love being a part of it.
Well, I often say these are my unreached people group. I don't want them to be forgotten for the sake of the gospel. Laura, speaking of just, you know, processing through and working through stuff, I would love to know, I think one of the beautiful things about working at Global is we get to constantly talk about our own journey, our own walk with the Lord. Can you tell me just what's he doing in your life right now?
Yeah, you know, it's so neat because I feel like there's so many things going on, you know, from personally to the ways things tie into like my position at Global and just the beauty of all of that coming together. I'm very much a holistic thinker in that I want balance. And I feel like, you know, God is constantly bringing that balance to my life. I have 2 teenage daughters. They're 13 and 15. They're starting up school again. I'm doing the mom thing, you know, but then I'm also in a role that does require me to be very intentional and forward thinking. But I think one of the things that God has just given me just a space right now, which sounds familiar, I'm sure, to everyone, but just to really be still. And I've found that to be so, so encouraging and restful. And I think it goes from the fact of like, it's in my heart and mind, but then it's also in my like literal lay down, be still, take a moment, and it's okay to take a moment, you know? Yeah. And so, but the beautiful thing about that verse in Psalm 46 is like, be still and know that I am God. And then the second part of that verse is, I will be exalted among the nations. So I feel like God has like brought that verse into my space right now so much because I'm looking at the be still and know that I am God, going through every facet of even my personal life, but then the relief, even as a mobilizer and even as the desire to mobilize people to the field, is just this like, he has said it, he will be exalted among the nations. Yeah. So it's not my job to get people to the field. It's nobody's job. Like, God is the great mobilizer. Yes. And he is always working. We are literally just intersecting people at people's lives. And it's a blessing to even being able to do it. But yeah, that verse especially, I mean, I have just been meditating over it and meditating. And then the awesome thing about God is I get a call from this woman. I live in the Alabama area, and it's local to here, but she asked me, she said, Laura, would you mind coming and being one of our speakers for a conference next spring? And I said, sure. What's the oh goodness, topic? I can't even think of the word. Topic. Yeah. Like subject, theme, topic. And it was be still. And I was like, oh goodness, yes, I would, just that confirmation of, and she's like wanting me to take a deep dive into, the time when Jesus really stilled the water. And I'm like, that is something that I've been wanting to do more of. So it's like, not only do I have the accountability to go ahead and just do it because I need to do it, but I also, it's just the beauty of seeing God intersect the things that he's already placing, on our hearts. And then he's, it reminds me that it's being in the center of his will is not like something we have to investigate and figure out. Like we really do just have to make a choice daily to sit and to open our hearts and say, what space do you want me in today? What path do you want me to walk in now? And I think where I get antsy is wanting more steps ahead, more than I'm being given in that day or in that time frame. So it's been a really sweet thing to, just to meditate on. So that's kind of the space I've been in. But what about you? Where has God had you right now? In the same space? Maybe sort of, kind of?
Similar. I mean, to make it succinct, so I stay on our time limit, so they let us take over the podcast again.
True.
God is my provider, and he's their provider. And I know that seems really simple, but I sometimes want to fix everything and do everything, but he is the provider. And I think that goes along with being still too. Yeah. And just recognizing that strength. I just want to thank our listeners for staying with us today, to digging into the lives of third culture kids, hearing about what's happening at Global Outreach. And if you have enjoyed this, we'd love to hear from you. Please remember to subscribe to podcasts wherever you subscribe them to. There's lots of different platforms. And be on the lookout for our next Go Fish, a story of different missions opportunities and adventures around the world.